Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Hope y'all doing okay. So, one of the things that I kind of wanted to expand on in this most recent election, one of the things that I don't know if it drew national attention or not, was a vote in Oregon to decriminalize a ton of drugs. And my understanding, and if I'm wrong on this, someone please jump in and correct me, is that they decriminalized basically everything on a drug offense. So I'd have to read the legislation, but my understanding is you can be in possession of meth, coke, heroin, and other forms of street drugs. They also did decriminalize psychedelics and marijuana, which I think may have already been the case there. I'm not positive on that. So I do have a very complex opinion on this, but it's not going to be something that I can go through real quick, but I'll go through it with you. So my take on any substance, whether it's nicotine, THC, CBD, whatever, you can kind of do what you want so long as you can take care of your business. So I have seen alcoholics that were essentially functioning alcoholics going to work, taking care of business while drinking or drunk the whole time, and kind of, spend a lot of money, but taking care of their bills and what their obligations. And while I might have some, shall we say, moral or safety objections to that, if you're functioning and taking care of what you got to take care of, you do you, man. I really don't care that much. And frankly, the same goes for marijuana or vape pens or, any THC type product. You want to do that, that's fine, as long as you can function and take care of your bills or you're doing it responsibly. Basically, where I draw the line is I don't particularly like people driving under the influence or things like that. So, and I've got a theory about marijuana and driving versus alcohol, but that's for another discussion entirely. When it comes to psychedelics, I've heard several studies where therapists have found use for psychedelics and ecstasy and various forms of mental therapy that really helps people with traumatic life events or accept the coming of death, in the case of terminally ill patients. So I'm not opposed to that. I do think that it needs to be very strictly regulated. I also think that sale portions need to be very tightly controlled on that. A good friend of mine is a little more into that. We'll just leave it at that. And he actually watched a guy die because he was partying and he had more than one type of drug and basically dehydrated himself to death. So I do think that a sale portion based on body weight or body fat percentile, body mass index, something should be looked into in that. And then when you come to the more hardcore drugs, meth, heroin, cocaine, stuff like that, I don't know what the answer is on that. I do think that rehabs are a better option than jail, but I don't think that full-on decriminalization is going to be a long-term solution. I'd love to be proved wrong on that. In Louisville, the largest city in my state, a number of years ago, and I'm sure there still are, but it just caught media attention, there was a huge overdose problem. And the taxpayers started getting upset because you were having repeat overdoses who were receiving an ambulance call and Narcan all on the Jefferson County tax dole, which I get to a point, like, where do you draw that line on, you're not getting cleaned up? I don't know what resources there are available, if they're affordable or whatnot, but where do you draw that line on helping someone versus enabling a bad street drug habit? And I've had some lengthy discussions about this, and I don't think they should be legal, personally, because there are some people that get so hooked that they will do what is necessary in order to get their fix. There was someone that I drove to work for a time, and I actually talked about this in the last video on gossip. Her son had a problem, and one time I went to pick this person up, and her son was there asking for money, and she had kind of cut him off a while back. She knew he had problems, and had tried to help him, but he wasn't getting straight, so she kind of had to let him hit rock bottom on his own and, go through the heartache that a hardcore drug addiction can bring. Well, he wasn't letting her shut her door, and I had seen some of the drama from him before. Just, what he would do to his mom, and he'd call her on the phone while we were driving, etc. Well, this one day he owed somebody some money or needed a fix or whatever, and he literally tried to snatch his own mother's purse out of the car while we're both sitting in it. And I did not want to get involved till she said something. She's like, "Can you help me? He's trying to take my purse." Okay, well, we'll just say that we fixed the problem real quick. And he didn't try to do that again. So I think with street drugs, the likelihood that with hard street drugs, I should say, the likelihood that you run into erratic, irrational, and potentially harmful behavior is a lot higher, based on all the things I've seen, based on the things I've heard. However, if you're going to legalize that, there are upsides to it. You won't get drugs cut with, if they're going through some sort of a inspection, same way that the marijuana crops in Colorado and California do, where they're certified to be, a pure product and not laced with anything, which I think is a good thing overall. I think that would be a good thing about the the harder drugs. Not that I'm for that, but you wouldn't get street drugs laced with fentanyl and have these drug overdoses due to contaminated drugs. So that part of legalization I'm a fan of, just because you can regulate it, make it safer than buying something that's unknown from Joe Drug Cooker down the street in a crack house. You can have a product that's cleanly manufactured, as safe as possible manufactured, and is of a known strength, so that when you do go to administer the drug to yourself, you know exactly the strength and quantity you're getting. So that much of it I'm a fan of. But I also think that if you are buying street drugs where the possibility of overdose and the need of Narcan is real, I think that a dose of Narcan should be included in the purchase price. My opinion. And I know I'm only scratching the surface on the street drugs that are on the market, but I think that therapies and I think that there are benefits that have been largely ignored by the government to marijuana and certain psychedelic drugs that could potentially see real benefits if decriminalized, where people aren't looking at going to jail because of possession in quantities for themselves, or dealers aren't going to jail for non-violent drug activity. The only time that I have problems with drug dealers is when gang violence related to their drug sales starts happening. I know a couple people that have messed with psychedelics, and they say that even after it will have cleared your system, the mood benefits and feeling less depressed and less anxiety and a general overall more happiness in life lasts long after the drugs will have cleared your system. So there is something mind altering and potentially good about it long term, so long as you administer it in a safe manner, which I'm a fan of. I've heard people talk about microdosing daily, where they don't risk the visual hallucinations or any of the other effects of psychedelics, but it just keeps them in a fantastic mood all day, and they just microdose quite often. So I don't know what the right answer is on that. I do think that there needs to be objective scientific research into psychedelics. I do think that there needs to be objective scientific research into marijuana. I do think there needs to be objective scientific research into the street drugs. I don't think that a open case study like we could be looking at with Oregon is the way to approach the issue. But, and I was talking with another friend of mine who's not into all that. I was talking to him about it, and I said, the one thing that I hope is that if the net result of legalizing hardcore street drugs is good or bad, that if it's bad, Oregon pays attention and looks into repealing their action that happened in this election. And if the net result is good, that other states pay attention. And if the net result of decriminalizing psychedelics is good, I hope other states pay attention.
that's kind of where I come down on the issue. I don't know that it's good or bad, but I hope that whatever the results are, that elected officials pay attention to the second and third order effects of this legislation and act accordingly. So that's kind of what I got. That's one of the beauties about having 50 states that aren't under micromanagement from the federal government, is you can kind of run case studies on various things and see what works and what doesn't without having to have sweeping national mandate on a given issue. And frankly, if Oregon is a success story, which I look for the results to come in mixed, but if Oregon's a success story, and suppose that, if you're if you have a hardcore drug problem, the money that they would spend on you in jail goes to money that they can spend for you in rehab. Maybe that could be a national approach to that, and just get rid of the DEA. People know when your friends and family know when you got a drug problem, and they could call and get you checked into a rehab, and it would be paid for by the same money pool that would send you to jail, and you can get clean. So, my opinion, I'd like to hear yours. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Stay safe. Catch y'all next time.